So and
Yeah.
I just wanted to give it on a little bit on the parent side. Is if you remove remove the emotions, you can look at what is the actual big picture here. So I'm looking at the OHL level now. Okay, I'm just talking like where my son's at because it's like it's much more intense. What is the big picture now, and who else is involved in making decisions? So sometimes when you look at your son playing hockey, all you care about is your son doing well and his ice time, and he did good. And you don't see necessarily the negative, but let's just say he is doing really well. If you detach yourself, let's just say that your son is legit should be a third line player, so he's getting regular ice, possibly power play, possibly a little bit of penalty kill. Let's say he gets every puck out, he makes the correct play every time, finishes his hits as a young player. Um, Finishes his hits, gets shots on net, and he's playing a good solid game. All right, but that's your point of view. But whatever, you got to look at who else is involved. The coach is involved in making a decision. Now, what does that mean? Well, the coach, I think we said this in a podcast not too long ago at a high level, is responsible not only for you but for 20 other players. So he's looking at 20 other players. He's looking at a system and is everything working the way he wants it to work and all that stuff. You still might be right. He might be wrong. You still might be right. The other things that come into play, like especially at higher levels, is there's agents, there's owners, there's winning games, there's all the variables that can contribute to a coach's decisions. And I'm going to tell you, this is the honest to goodness truth. When I coached, every coach can say that I don't care what let's say youth hockey, I don't care what the parents think. I'm doing what's right for the team or what I think is right. That's true to a point. Because if you happen to be if your son's on my team, Eric, and we're buddies and he's at my house all the time, I don't care what anyone says. I want your kid to do well.
Yep.
I like you, I like your kid and all that stuff. So there is a little bit more leash, or not even necessarily leash, it's just likability or I got to deal with you. Right? So at the end of the game, you don't want to be my friend anymore because I treated your kid negatively. So that goes into coaches' decisions sometimes.
Yeah. Can I cut you off for a second?
Sure.
Sorry,
No, it's all
I don't
good.
want you to lose your thread. So the other thing I was gonna say is it doesn't even have to be that serious where it's like we're friends.
Yeah.
I'm even thinking about it with the business at PowerTech.
Yeah.
If somebody calls me and asks me about XYZ situation, even if I don't have any necessarily have any attachment to that kid or that family or that parent, just the fact that they've called me, they've brought themselves into my focus.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not necessarily someone I never thought of or dismissed or whatever, but maybe it's just I could take for granted that they are where they are and whatever. And just by simply having that conversation with me, now I'm giving you a second thought at the very least. And this is what can happen with, if a little bit of a side tangent, if players talk to their coach or if parents talk to the coach when the kids are young, whatever, it can just bring a little bit of focus back onto you for at least a short period of time.
Yeah.
So it doesn't even have to be as serious as we're buddies or whatever, right? Just
or a parent comes up to you because everyone says, "Oh, I don't care what parents say," or if you call me about ice time, it'll be a short conversation. But it's true, but it's not.
Right. Exactly.
Because the squeaky wheel tends to get greased not most of the time, but plenty of times.
Mm-hmm.
So if I see a dad coming in like sad or pissed or whatever, as a human being, you want to say, well, maybe I'll give the kid a chance. That's just what happens. So the coach has to manage those emotions. At the high levels now, like we talked about this before, is you also have agents, you have NHL teams, you have all these different things at play. So your kid is like, yeah, he's important to me, and he's very important to me. But this agent guy has 5 guys on my team, and he got me a good import player, and we have a pretty good relationship with that. So now if I get him upset, I'm not saying it's right. I'm not. But you have the ability to lose a relationship that helps you find good players. He might not get you that import player anymore. He might not have players that that typically go to your team. He might say negative things and maybe talk them out of it or show them different options, maybe college or something like that. So there's those things are all in place. So if you can actually detach yourself as a parent, even though you don't like it, and then look at the game and say, okay, can you get better? And if you understand the game, but that's another thing.
Yep.
But be able to do that and say, to be able to be honest with yourself and understand that it's not just about you, because every parent's looking at the same thing all the time.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely, man. So I don't know if that's all you had on that. You
Why
want to
not?
move to
And
your
just the last
one
thing
more?
is,
Go ahead.
I don't know if I had a lot here. For coaches, take a view, an objective view as well. So for yourself as a coach, so you might sit there and say, this kid's not, you're maybe got. I might. How about this? Do I treat all kids equal,
I was
like
just gonna say that.
fairly
Yeah,
and equal?
that's right. Yeah,
Fair and equal are two different things. Equal ice time is not fair,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
But do I treat them as humans fairly? And you probably don't, because there's gonna be some kid on your team that just annoys you.
Yeah,
I've
for
been
sure,
there,
man.
done that, and it's just the way it is. And it doesn't bother you as much to that he doesn't get ice or whatever, or you just treat him a little bit differently because um, are you but when you look at your coaching style and stuff, are you actually a good communicator? So if things aren't going your way, is it their fault or is it yours? So like objectively look back and say, how have I communicated? Let's say, for example, a drill. Every time I do a drill, you guys screw it up. What is wrong with you guys? You don't listen. Well, maybe you went through to it too fast. Maybe it's too much detail. Maybe it's too much. Maybe you don't understand your group. Maybe you just assume that they get it. And like look at how you explain it. Like, are you a good teacher so that you can communicate well? And like that's just one point I had. And then are you actually bringing it every day? Like you sit there, you want demand so much from certain people, but when they look at you, do they see the same thing? Do they see you coming to the practice or the game every day, prepared, ready, as knowledgeable as you can be, and doing what you're asking from them?
Yeah, yeah. So the one thing I'll pin on for the coaches is the example you gave of, if let's say you have a parent buddy and you maybe have a little bit of preference for their kid or whatever, because that happens. And that's not even like that's necessarily a bad thing either. It's just that's can be the reality. You know certain people better than others, and obviously you're gonna have more feelings for one person than another. Like that's is what it is. But if you are doing that, then that's the important thing I want to pin in, especially in minor hockey, like when you're just dealing with kids and parents, and it's everyone should be just playing and developing, and should be fun for everybody and all that. Have you been maybe neglecting one of the kids on your team? Have you not necessarily paid attention? Have you not had a conversation with certain kids on the team just because you haven't been paying attention or whatever? Maybe you mean nothing by it, but that kid's like, man, does my coach even know that I exist on this team, right? Just because you haven't thought about it. So especially as the coach too, it's a really important skill to have.